Speaker of the House, Philip Gunn, who's been under the spotlight for the last 24 hours. You're a popular guy there, by the way. Good morning.
I didn't know that, Emma.
I have to text you and tell you you're popular. People are looking for you.
Well, thank you for saying that.
Thanks for coming in. And I want to cover some other things, too, because we had a deadline yesterday, and some of the things that were under the deadline, and for us novices out there, no matter how long we've been covering this, what is dead and what is not dead, and we'll talk about that in a moment or two. Let's jump right into it on the postpartum thing and what happened yesterday, and take us through this as far as you arriving at the point of saying, okay, let's get this done.
Well, there's been quite a bit of discussion about whether or not the postpartum benefits should be extended or not, and I have been very clear on my position on that. And to be candid, I'm still not convinced that I'm all the way there. We're still going to move the bill along just to keep the discussion alive at the request of the governor. The governor on Sunday decided that he would want that. Well, you know what he decided. He decided he wanted to move the bill along. Now, I was in Tupelo Sunday night and Monday morning giving a speech there, and did not really get a chance to address this until yesterday about 1:30 when I returned. So we're going to move the bill out of the committee, but there's still more work to be done, and there's a process that has to unfold. I noticed on your website here you say that Speaker Gunn's going to let the people vote. Well, we've not decided to do that yet. We've decided to move the bill out of the committee and keep it alive. The deadline is today, by the way. The deadline to move bills out of the committee. So that's where things stand.
Okay, well, wait a minute. If it moves out of the committee, will that mean it'll be automatically voted on, or?
No, sir. It means it goes to the calendar of the House floor, and it sits on the calendar until it's taken up.
So apparently we got some misinformation from the print media, and that's why it's always good to have the people who are in the news on the air with us to talk directly to the people. Did you get the letter? From what we heard from the printed media was that you got the letter from Drew Snyder, and it answered the questions that you were concerned about. So therefore, you would not stand in the way and block the postpartum. That's the way it was perceived in printed media.
Well, I've expressed two concerns over the year about this. And we've appealed to the Department of Medicaid to guide us on this repeatedly.
You said that on the air with me more than once.
Right. This is a letter we've been waiting on for a year. We needed some guidance. We needed some help. They're the experts on the thing. So the letter we received indicated two things. One is they now support the policy of extending those coverage, those benefits. And secondly, they don't consider it to be Medicaid expansion. Their logic there is that, as I understand it, their logic is that we are not adding new people to the rolls. We are simply extending benefits for people who are already on the roll. So that is how they conclude this is not Medicaid expansion. And that
that's playing with words, though, isn't it, Philip? Because, number one, if you've got 5,000 more people, well, if we have a birth rate of about 5,000 per year, and a sizable increase in the people who are going to have that baby because of Dobbs, that would be an increase, whether you call it an increase, an expansion, or whatever you want to call it.
As far as those who are qualified, I guess I should have said that. Yeah, you may have more people. Those numbers go up and go down all the time. People roll on, people roll off. I didn't mean to imply that the numbers would change, but the eligibility would not change. That's a better way of saying it.
Fair enough.
You're right. So that is where the things stand. Now, I have tried to in advance, and I believe it's a better way of doing it, or an additional way, if you want to call it that, a private sector solution. We have a bill, 1671, that we passed out of the House that has gone to the Senate that provides a tax credit for individuals and companies who want to provide health care to the citizens of this state through a tax credit. There's a model out there that we are high on that is a nonprofit model, and what that does is incentivize nonprofits to provide health care. There's an example of this up in Jonestown, Mississippi, in Clarksdale, where a faith-based nonprofit is providing health care 2 days a week, and it only costs them about $150,000 a year. And so we passed a bill that would provide a $4 million tax credit. This is modeled after the Crisis Pregnancy Center tax credit that we passed last year, that incentivizes private citizens to support such agencies, such health clinics. And for $4 million, we can put 20 of those around the state. And that provides health care 2 days a week, all around the state, at no additional cost to the taxpayers, no additional cost to the state of Mississippi. You're not growing a government program. This is just like the Crisis Pregnancy Center tax credit that we did last year.
So you're basically saying that these private sectors would be able to absorb the indigent care?
Yes, sir.
At what rate? 100% or 75%
yes,
or whatever?
Yes, sir.
At 100%?
100%. Free health care.
With the tax credit?
Free health care with tax credit. The Crisis Pregnancy Center, and this is the thing that your listeners need to hear. If they don't hear anything else I say today, they need to hear this. We passed a bill last year to give a $3.5 million tax credit to the Crisis Pregnancy Centers around the state. And the way that works is, if you owe tax money to the state of Mississippi, you can give up to half of that to a Crisis Pregnancy Center in support of their operations. It's a no-brainer. It is a easy thing, easy way for people who want to support these. This is not an additional donation. It's not a contribution of and above your taxes. If you owe $10,000 in tax to the state of Mississippi, you're going to be out $10,000. You have to embrace that reality. You're going to pay that $10,000. But under this bill, you can give $5,000 of that $10,000 obligation to a Crisis Pregnancy Center to support their operations, and they can provide health care and needs to the women who are with an unplanned pregnancy and meet those needs. We are, in fact, having a bill this year to extend that from $3.5 to $10 million, because that will cover the entire operating budget of all the crisis pregnancy centers around the state. We took that same model and passed a bill, 1671, to do the same thing in the healthcare world. And with a $4 million tax credit, you, as a citizen of the state of Mississippi, rather than giving your tax liability all to the state of Mississippi, you can give half of it to a health center around the state, who will then provide the postpartum care and the heart congestive failure care and the diabetic care and everything else. It's a wonderful program. It's a wonderful model, and it does not cost taxpayer. It's not growing a program.
Let's talk about killing two birds with one stone. How does this work in conjunction with the problems we have with rural hospitals?
Well, it's another health option for those who need health care. It is free health care.
On their red line, they would use the tax credit on as far as their red line is concerned.
Sir. Well, if they're nonprofit, possibly yes, because the bill is limited to nonprofits.
Yeah. Well, that would qualify some of the municipal.
It may very well, yes. I haven't looked at that. We haven't thought about the rural hospital aspect of it. But with this tax credit, you could create these centers all around the state.
Let's go back to the when Dr. Edney and I talked about the health centers across the state. Is that inclusive of those?
The FQHCs?
The county health systems.
Yes, sure. Those
centers.
are called federally qualified health centers, is what FQHC stands for. We also have a bill an appropriation bill this year to double the appropriations to those outfits as well, from $4 million to $8 million, which also provides free health care to citizens. So my point is, this is another way to get health care out into the rural areas of the state without growing government.
Would you agree, and again, the Speaker of the House is with me, would you agree, Philip, that the governor can, if you decide that this is not going to go forward and it doesn't meet the deadline today, or the deadline, would you suggest that the governor could do this on his own?
It is my understanding that the governor can do this on his own. It does not require legislative action.
It doesn't require a special session.
It is my understanding that all they have to do is request a waiver from the CMS, and everyone believes that would be granted immediately. And so, yes, this can be done without legislative action. So
let me ask you when we come back. When we come back, I just want to. What is it going to take to get you over the hoop on here? You said you still have some concerns, and you're still not sure that this thing is going to go through. What would it take for you to do that when we come back with the Speaker of the House? We're talking about postpartum bill. I think it's SB 2212 in the Senate bill. Philip Gunn, I hope you're not reading the C-Spire text line out there, because if you read the C-Spire text line, it's a lot of commonality between talk show hosts and politicians, where in every 50, 25 are the villain and 25 more you're the hero. So it changes the next day, so don't worry about that. As a politician for a long time, you know that.
Yeah, well, I have the same experience with my wife, so there you go.
Yeah, well, if you break out 50-50 with your wife, you're doing pretty good. All right, let's get back to this. It seems that there is still a stalemate here, contrary to what we were led to believe as far as the media is concerned. And you basically have told me that you think this is I'm not going to put words in your mouth, but it's far from a done deal.
That's correct. I mean, we still have the process to go. There are some things about this bill that we would like to see improved. One is that if in fact this bill goes through, we don't want any of those benefits being used to perform abortions. And so I think we're going to add a restriction in there to prohibit the performance of abortions. We also need to make sure that anyone who's receiving those benefits is actually qualified or eligible. So there needs to be a verification of eligibility that goes along with it. I don't think that's in the bill right now. So there are some improvements that could be made along, with the bill if, in fact, it goes through.
So no way you're going to be able to sign the bill that's there. You're going to have to send it back to the Senate.
Well, if we in fact do make amendments, it would go back to the Senate for their approval or not. We call it concurrence or non-concurrence. Yeah. And if they don't agree with those changes, then those changes on any bill, not this bill, but any bill, you'd end up going to conference, which means we have to negotiate those things out.
Those the only two?
I don't know. There's two that I think of when I'm sitting here.
So those two just popped up.
I mean, that's the ones that come to mind. Okay. But there may be others. Again, I go back. With this got put on me at 1:30 yesterday afternoon when I got back. So I'm.
When did you get the letter?
I think it arrived in my office around noon yesterday. I was not there yet to receive it.
This was the first one you got?
Yes, sir.
So you don't know if there's any changes, or he could have actually issued this at the beginning of the session, or maybe during the summer.
Correct.
So one way or the other, you don't know if there were any changes, or he acquiesced and found some new numbers, and now it's more palatable than it was before.
I have not spoken with the governor. I don't know what.
I'm talking about from Medicaid itself.
Well, like I said in the beginning, we have been seeking guidance from them for over a year. About what are their positions on these things, and I've met with Drew Snyder at least twice myself and had these conversations, and so until yesterday there had been no direction or opinion expressed by them on these things. And
I asked this question yesterday on whether that program is going on or not. And here's what I got here. Based on current COVID-19 trends, the Department of Health and Human Services is planning for the federal public health emergency declared under to expire at the end of May the 11th, 2023. Okay. So does that mean all of these people we're talking about, these mothers, they are covered all the way through May of this year?
And have been ever since the COVID crisis. So
I know some people in the media who think it's over. They haven't been covered for a while.
And that's absolutely wrong. And there have been a lot of misrepresentations made in the print media about how some have died because they didn't have this coverage. That is a falsehood.
That's not helping the cause.
The history of this, Paul, is that up until from about 50 years, up until 2018, 6 weeks of postpartum care was recommended by the American Association of Gynecologists. In 2018, they expanded that to 12 weeks until May or April of 2021. And the Biden administration, using the COVID crisis as a reason, expanded it to a full year. And now, ever since then, everybody has had coverage for the full year, for the last 2 years. But what you've just read indicates that year-round coverage is going to expire whatever date it was that you read there.
11th, yeah.
And so this is why the discussions are when that expires, you revert back to what was before, and we had 8 weeks, 60 days, I think it is, of coverage previously. So this is why the discussion is taking place.
Do you have some validity, or do you have some confidence that number of $7 million is accurate?
That's the number that they provided to us, and that's the only basis we have to go on, is that they say it will cost around $7 million.
Yeah. Do you personally see merit in that program?
Here's been my main concern, Paul. As you know, we've been very vocal against Medicaid expansion. I think you are against Medicaid expansion, are you not?
Yeah, and I look at them as two different things.
Yeah. Well, the argument that's been put forward, and this has been my struggle all along, is that the argument has been this will improve health outcomes. And I don't disagree with that. Maybe it will, maybe it won't. I will tell you that the data has been very inconclusive on that, and I think Drew says as much in that letter that you've got there. So I don't know that the data has established that health outcomes actually improve. But if you embrace that line of argument, then the same argument can be made for people with heart disease. Same can be made with people with diabetes. Same can be made with people with kidney dialysis. And so this is why I have contended that we are on a slippery slope here, playing with expansion of Medicaid. Now, Drew says in that letter they don't view it as expansion because you're not changing the eligibility requirements. But if you embrace the argument that health outcomes improve, then what are you going to do next year when they come back and want to put expand it to heart disease or kidney dialysis or diabetes, and you really don't have a defense there to that. And this is why I'm fearful of going down this road, because you are going down the road of Medicaid expansion, and I don't know where you're going to be able to stop that. Yeah. And as you know, that's the second highest expenditure in our budget. And Mississippi, I believe, is different than other states. Other states don't have as high a Medicaid population as we do. You look at, I wish I'd brought my pie chart. We got a pie chart that shows our expenditures. 54% of our dollars are spent on education. 20% is spent on Medicaid. Yeah. 75 cents out of every dollar is spent on those two expenditures alone. So if we're going to put more money into Medicaid, where are you going to get it? You're going to have to take it from other things in the budget, or you're going to have to raise taxes. And so this is the reason I've been very hesitant to go down this road, because I just don't. It's a slippery slope. And some try to distinguish by saying, well, we're not increasing eligibility. It's only $7 million. And that may be true. But if we add all the heart disease patients and the kidney dialysis and the diabetes patients, it's a lot more than $7 million. And then we got to figure out where we're going to get the money to do it.
That's why when you talk about a slippery slope, that's one of the reasons that a lot of people are concerned, because if it gets out of control in expanding Medicaid, I'm not talking about postpartum, but on the expanding Medicaid, all of a sudden, every state that's done that, it's either double the amount that they anticipated, even conservatively, and it's eaten up at their budget. What could get out of control here in the state of Mississippi would be unbelievable to the budget itself.
And in addition to that, Paul, I don't know that it's been proven to show that it improves or increases health outcomes.
I've said that. We've had Medicaid here a long time, enough for data to be pouring in, and it hasn't helped us. We're still the fattest. We still are number one in venereal diseases or STDs. We're number two in syphilis. The only thing that I say about the postpartum, and Dr. Edney hit it on the head when he was here, he basically said that it's a service. We need to do a better job of informing them that it's there and making sure that they use it, as you said, and I agree with you, in the right way. But that's one of the things that aggravates a lot of us in this audience, is where we have a program, but we don't do performance based on that program. We know it's needed, but we're not sure we just put the money in it and that's where we leave it.
Yes,
And the body at the House and Senate. Do you ever have any meetings or any bills that says, all right, we've got this program, but let's make damn sure that it's being used in the right way?
yes, and I think we try to make sure that we get a good return on investment. That's what you're talking about. We're putting money here. Is it producing the kind of return that we want on any program, education or Medicaid or whatever?
I want to ask you about the hospital bill. We've got one more segment here coming back with the Speaker of the House. From what I understand, it's on life support as far as the rural hospitals. You got a bill in the House, you got a bill in the Senate. Both the House and the Senate have voted overwhelmingly to pass this thing, but is it going to make it, and is it still about $80 million? We'll have those answers from the man himself, the Speaker of the House, Philip Gunn, when we return. But the meetings go on. What time do the meetings usually start in the mornings when it's an afternoon start as far as the floor is concerned?
We can have some start as early as 8 o'clock.
Let me just toss one more question, and then the rest of the time is yours here in the short segment. But as far as the hospital bill itself, will that come up today?
The hospital bill meaning what?
The $80 million.
Actually, I think that's already passed. That's an appropriation bill.
Mm-hmm. So appropriations is deadlines when?
It's a different deadline. We have different kinds of bills. People probably, I think we've discussed this before, but in the way of reminder, you have general bills, you have appropriation bills, you have revenue bills, you got local and private bills, and then you got other resolutions and things that don't have any deadline. So each of those different types of bills have different types of deadlines. They have different voting thresholds. We've talked about that before. You have to have a simple majority for a general bill, but a revenue bill is a 3/5 majority, so on and so forth. So
it was an interesting conversation.
Today's the deadline for us to pass general bills from the Senate out of committee.
I got it. It was an interesting conversation with Chris McDaniels on with Gerard the other day, and he was talking about, and I never thought about this, but we have too many committees out there. We've just grown too many committees. We have committees that don't even get any bills. As you leave the Speaker's post and the legislature, your thoughts on that?
I agree with that. I inherited, I think, about 33 committees on the House side. I don't know the history of all those committees or why they were created. They were done by people who preceded me. But I would encourage both chambers to look for ways to reduce the number of committees and create subcommittees that actually have work to do, weighty things to do. I think that's a better way of running it. I look at some of my companion speakers around the country, and many of them have 15 or 16 committees, about half of what we have.
Really?
Yeah.
Amazing.
And you just as an example, you could take the Appropriations Committee and probably have about 8 subcommittees within that actually do work, actually have things, to do. So that would be my suggestion, is to try to streamline it, make it more efficient.
Is that Rules Committee? Is that how you do that? You don't have to have any kind of
it is in the rules.
You can do that next session if they wanted to do it.
Could be changed, yes. We adopt rules at the beginning of each term, and that could be looked at and restructured. Probably.
That would be something to be done over the summer period or during the session itself?
You could do it, be ready. You have to adopt rules when you convene in the first year of a new term. Now, there was one year long before I ever got in the legislature where I think they operated the entire session on temporary rules. They never did adopt the permanent rules, but that'll all come up next year.
All right, your final. Any other bills out there that you want to spotlight here? Because we got the EV bill, we got the autonomous bill, we've got several other things out there, but only a couple of minutes left. Now I want to make sure you get the last couple of minutes to
thank you.
Wrap this up.
I would like to emphasize so many of the bills that we worked hard on over the summer to address what we're calling the post-Roe versus Wade world. There's been a great emphasis on making sure that we address the needs of mothers and the infants that are going to be born. And in the House, we passed a number of bills this year that are designed to do that. We've increased the adoption tax credit from $5,000 to $10,000. We passed the tax credit I mentioned earlier to do health care around the state. We passed a tax credit to do the crisis pregnancy centers. We are passed a bill to what we call the Foster Care Bill of Rights, which is designed to streamline and improve the effectiveness of the foster care system. We passed a bill to streamline and make it cheaper to do an adoption. There's a whole host of pro-life measures that we passed in the House, many of which are designed to improve the effectiveness of an agency. Like we passed a bill to help Child Protective Services. These are some of the ones that come to mind that we have passed, all designed to make a greater emphasis on mothers and babies and try to help what we view to be this post-Roe world. And I go back to the two tax credit bills I mentioned a minute ago. I think this is a wonderful way to incentivize a private sector solution without growing government, without expanding government cost. By giving these tax credits, what you do is you incentivize businesses and individuals who owe this money. They're going to pay this money, but you incentivize them to give it to do good for the state of Mississippi, improve health care, take care of children, versus just giving tax money to the state of Mississippi, which is going to be spent on who knows what.
But again, that has to be organic. I mean, it has to grow it has to be formed. It's not there yet.
Well, yes, but as soon as you get the word out, people respond. And we've seen that in the Crisis Pregnancy Center tax credit.
Man, thank you for coming in. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
And I know it's been a busy couple of past days. Philip Gunn, and again, the House goes in at 2 p.m. this afternoon. The Senate